It's time once again to slip into your camo, grab your bow, and join us out in the field for another episode of the Up North Journal, presented by PSE Archery. The Up North Journal crew is knocked and ready to rock for another exciting adventure. So let's step outside and hit the trail.
This episode of the Up North Journal podcast is brought to you by PSE Archery,
Carbon Express,
Fourth Arrow Camera Arms,
Wind Scent Hunting Sense,
Killer Food Plots, Seeds, Supplements, and Attractants,
Cabela's,
Spot Shooters,
Limb Walker Game Calls,
Twisted Minds Bowstrings,
Hunter's Blend Coffee,
Antler Action,
and Family Traditions Tree Stand.
And don't forget you can catch us in syndication at 2 p.m. Eastern Time on goodtalkradio.com.
Welcome back to another episode of the Up North Journal, everybody. I'm host Mike Adams, sitting at a cabin tonight with special guest Ben Londe.
Hello.
He is hanging out in the cabin with us. I got Danny over here, and it's post-Christmas, pre-New Year's Eve, pre-New Year's Day celebration, and
day before New Year's Eve, and finally got some white stuff on the ground out there, and
sitting here and enjoying some Hunter's Blend coffee as always. And Danny, what's the promo code?
Hey, lest we not forget, one of our best sponsors we have, huntersblendcoffee.com. Get on over there to the website. If you use the promo code capital UNJ, you get 10% off your order.
That's right. So get over there, get you some, and let them know that we sent you over and save a little bit of money. So, and Ben, got you some Hunter's Blend here, man.
I do have some Hunter's Blend.
So hopefully that is up to your liking. So the reason we got Ben on, we had you on back, I think it was middle of January last year, episode 477. You had just gotten back from Alaska, and you came home for a visit, and I got to ask, is the pee clear now?
Clear as crystal. Clear as crystal.
Okay, just want to make sure everything's good. So if you guys are wondering what we're talking about, go back to that episode and take a listen, because you'll get the reference at that point of what we're talking about.
That was rough.
That was rough for you, man. I mean, you got in some trouble out there, it sounded like.
Yeah. It was this close to blacking out and not really knowing what I was doing, and just a whole lot of stuff happening. Tune in, check it out. What episode did you say? 477?
477, yeah. January, I think it was January 14th when I looked back. So it's all been almost a year. So
yeah,
and you survived.
I did survive. I'm here today.
So almost a year's gone by.
Yep.
What's going on in Ben's world?
What's not going on in Ben's world?
Where have you been? What have you been doing?
Well, the last 3 months have been quite a rush. I was in Alaska again.
Okay.
On a bow hunt for brown bear, getting within pretty close ranges to them, and they're big, very big, bigger than grizzlies. And then after that, I was in Utah hunting mule deer, in Idaho for guns and ammo. I was in Oklahoma for North American whitetail. I've been in Wyoming, South Dakota, Nebraska, Kansas, and Mexico.
You put a little tread on the tire.
A little bit of tread on the tire.
You get like frequent mileage or something like that?
I do. I'm adding them up, but they're getting up there.
There you go, man.
I passed one level, and I'm almost at another level, but I won't quite make it this year. So
for those people out there that don't know, you work for...
I work for the Outdoor Sportsman's Group. So it's we've got the Outdoor Channel and the Sportsman's Channel. Okay. Also the World Fishing Network, but that does its own thing. But we have a few shows that we produce in-house, and of those shows, I've worked on quite a few of them.
Okay.
Not all of them, but a good number of them. And, especially in the hunting seasons, it gets pretty busy. Okay. So
speaking of busy.
Busy.
You sent me some pictures, man. I was just blown away.
Yeah.
I mean, literally blown away. But do we want to dive into the hunt?
Let's do it, man. Let's dive in.
You actually got to go with somebody I really admire. I mean, I've learned a lot from this person, Dr. James Kroll. Mm-hmm. You spent some time with him. You were working on a show?
Yep, North American Whitetail. He's on there regularly for what they call Build Your Own Deer Factory, where he goes into habitat management of deer, and he also does hunts for them. So I was sent down with him. I was there last year with him as well, and also Pat Hogan as well down there. So for the same show. And so I knew where I was going as far as I knew the ranch owner and all that stuff. And I had the opportunity this year. It was just with Doc. So it was just him and I met in Laredo, Texas, went across with Mike, the owner of the ranch, and did a hunt.
Okay.
So it
Doc. Everybody calls him Doc.
Doc.
Everybody knows about Doc.
People say, "Oh, James." I'm like, "Who's James?" Oh, Doc.
Right?
Okay, yeah, Doc.
Right.
He's the. He told me this year he's been working with deer for 48 years. 48 years. 2 more years, you got, half a century of
2 more years. He's been working with deer as long as I've been alive.
Yeah.
That's incredible. And that's the reason he's full of knowledge.
The thing is, yeah, absolutely.
He's forgotten more than I'll ever know.
Exactly.
You know?
And the thing is, there's things, you ask him a simple question and he'll be like, oh yeah, well, let me tell you about this. When we did this study 20 odd years ago, and you're like,
right.
Oh, you actually, okay. You study this, you know it. And then you start to get into it and you realize, what this man knows is just like, he's a wealth of knowledge. And, there's things I can talk to him about previous hunting experiences and say, this is what I saw, this is what I experienced, or this is the type of deer I saw, what causes this, what causes the chocolate color in horns, antlers, excuse me.
I didn't correct you. I was just about to.
Is it from rubbing the trees? Is it genetic? What is it? And he would go into all that. Oh, this is why, bum, bum, bum. Just the thing about it is, like, he's extremely knowledgeable and he talks with extreme confidence, but it's never cocky.
No, the times I've been able to talk to him and spent some time around him, he will engage you in a conversation and he wants to know things from you and why you think a certain way or what you think and then he talks back to you in a way. It's not down to you. He talks to you, and we hear so many other people in the industry
talk over you.
Yeah. Or scientists or whatever, who are authorities. And yeah, he's like us sitting here talking tonight. I mean, it's that simple.
Yep.
One of his partners in crime is on, Wayne Sitton.
Hey, Wayne, what's going on, man? Glad you could join us tonight.
And you know what? It's kind of interesting. We've been on, I don't know how many times live, and now we put this guy on, Ben, and we get a comment that they're loving the hair and beard.
Right?
Yeah.
Really?
Well, I got a little bit more hair.
Beard.
I got a
Whose
ways
beard
to go.
are we talking about?
Yeah, I got a ways to go to catch
no,
you,
yours
though.
was called out.
Oh, okay. All right.
That's good. That's good stuff.
But yeah, working with Doc, it's a cool experience, and he's just like, there's so much that I've talked. I've learned a lot. I grew up hunting whitetail deer in Michigan. Grew up near here, just a little bit north of here. Hunted up in the northwest corner up in Wellston. Anybody know Wellston?
Yeah, I do. I know where it's at.
My great-grandparents had a place up there, and my grandpa used to hunt up there, and my dad used to hunt up there, and my uncles and cousins used to hunt up there. And so, that place had a lot of history for my family, but I didn't get to experience it until I was in 2011. Just started 12th grade.
Okay.
And so, sorry to date myself, but
he can do that because he's younger than us. Yeah. He's making fun of us, Danny.
But it's like going up there, and I was used to hunting cornfields in like the Thumb area, stuff like that, because my grandma used to live up there. My mom's mom lived up there for years until she passed away. But she had 40 acres up there, and we'd hunt up there, and that hunting on cornfields, fence lines, that has an feel to it. And then hunting up in northern Michigan has a feel to it, with all the
it's two different worlds.
It's completely different worlds. The smells are different. The sounds are different. Everything's different.
The UP, even where Danny hunts,
yeah.
is completely
exactly.
different.
And it's one of the unique things about this state that it's almost like 3 different regions.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, having been hunting, my family, coming from a family where both mom and dad's side hunted, to this job that I started a year and a half ago, I thought, I know about hunting, right?
Right.
I know whitetail hunting, How little did I realize that I knew so little? Because there's just all these guys I've worked with, from the North American whitetail guys, guys my age that know just an astronomical amount more than I do about whitetail hunting, because they've studied this and they live, sleep, eat, sleep and breathe whitetail hunting. And a lot of the other people I've worked with, whether it be whitetail, mule deer, whatever, I thought I knew deer hunting, but I didn't until I still don't. I don't want to give myself off as an expert in any way, shape, or form,
but you're learning.
Not, but I'm learning.
Yeah.
And
you're getting paid to learn.
Right. And
You shoot video.
right. And I've learned so much from the people I've worked with. And then to work with somebody like Doc, who has pretty near 50 years of experience as a wildlife biologist with these deer. I mean, it's just mind blowing what this man knows. And you know, we'd be sitting in a box blind in Mexico. You know, there's very low scrubby brush. There's not much. I mean, there's no trees for tree stands.
No.
You know, so it's like, you know, you've got these.
Right there in the picture. I mean,
Yeah,
that's,
you know, you look at that, and that's sitting in one box blind, seeing another box blind that I don't know how far away it was. It was probably 600-700 yards or more away.
okay.
And
You know,
that's about what, 12 feet in the air?
I'd say about 12 feet.
So there's
12,
nothing higher than 12 feet.
There's a couple, maybe 15 feet. But you look, there's nothing above it.
No, there isn't.
And
not Michigan.
There's, you know, Mexico, everything's trying to kill you. You know, the trees, there's rattlesnakes, you know, there's thorns and everything, prickly pear cactus, stuff like that. And you know, people like to hunt in trees, especially in these areas, but that's not an option there. So we're sitting in a box blind, and Doc will talk quietly, but he's not afraid to talk. Like, you know, that deer is this is deer, you know, talking about different aspects of these animals. So we're sitting out there on the first night with Doc, and we've got Patas, which was our guide, and we're sitting out there, and we're seeing deer coming in from this side, that side. We saw one way hundreds of yards in the distance, and we're just waiting, and Doc would do a little rattling out the window, and we saw this one buck. He's super wide, not real tall tines, but really wide, way out, about 600-700 yards out. We could just barely see him with our binoculars, and Doc rattles, and he turns and comes bolting straight towards us.
When does that happen in Michigan? I mean, I've never experienced that. I've never heard a lot of people that do that and make them come in.
Right.
The whole dynamic's so different.
Yeah. And
I don't mean to interrupt.
No, it's fine. It's fine. You know, it's a whole nother country. It's a whole nother world.
Yeah.
And you know, it's similar terrain to a lot of the parts of southern Texas I've seen in my travels for the job. But you know, calling in deer like that and just seeing them respond, and just the vast numbers of animals that are there. And so it's like, you know, and mind you, this ranch we were on was low fence. And so it's like they're coming in from all over, and they're not constricted to this little tiny land. Because down there's two different ranches, and the one of them is all low fence, and you know, it's huge. I don't know how many acres. The other one is, I forget exactly. I want to say it's close to 2,300 acres or so of all high fence. I don't know if you did the math on it, Danny, or not, but
yeah, it's 2.5 square miles about.
So, you know, there's a bit of space there, of some higher fence, but that's around the actual ranch property.
Okay.
But even then, like, all the deer in there are all natural, like, it's all natural genetics. But
they haven't brought in deer from other places to get them to where they're at today. They've gone in, they've worked with what they needed to do, bring the genetics up.
Yeah. And so, you know, you see these deer there that just phenomenal genetics in some of these deer. And so anyways, we're sitting out there, and we're seeing all these deer coming in. And, you know, we're seeing a lot of young deer, 2 years old or so. And we're just waiting. And pretty soon I saw one, and you know, it was the first night, but, you know, the thing with this show is, you know, with especially filming for a TV show is like, you know, if it's one you take on the last day, you should probably consider taking it on the first day. And it was a nice 10-point that Doc got. You know, he posted, if you want to see pictures, it's on his Facebook page.
Which
Dr.
is?
Dr. Deer, I think.
Yeah,
I think that's his page.
Dr.
Just
Deer.
Dr. Deer.
Yep.
So you can check those out there. But anyway, so you know
It's
that,
on his Facebook page too, I think, isn't it?
yeah.
Okay,
On
yeah.
his Facebook page.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's just like he's, you know, I thought, okay, this is a guy who studied deer for 48 years. Mm-hmm. He's done a lot of deer hunts. He's culled a lot of deer. So I'm thinking, okay, you know, this is just another deer for him. No, not at all. You know, he was guessing the age off the hoof. I don't remember what he guessed it off the hoof, but once we got it, he aged it was about 8.5 years old is what he aged it at.
Wow. So this is an old buck.
This is an old buck.
Yeah.
And but it was something where, you know, he's just you know, he respects these animals. He's studied them for years, and even then, you know, it was something as simple as I picked up a shell casing on the way out of the blind as we're going down to get the steer, and I said, I don't know, you've killed a lot of deer. I don't know if this matters to you. If you want it, he said, it does matter. Each and every one matters. And that was cool to see, because he has respect for the deer. He understands, as much as a human can understand deer. I don't know of many, if any, humans that understand as much as he does.
Right.
But yeah, it was a cool experience hunting with him. So like I said, guys, if you want to check out on Dr. Deer,
go over there and check it out.
Check it out.
Absolutely.
That's the thing, right? He's put so much time and effort, almost 50 years into this. He's given them the due respect that they've allowed him
right
to get.
Right.
Well, I'll tell you what, there's more to this story.
There is
There's a lot more to this story. So I'll tell you what, let's take our first break. We come back, we're going to dive a little more into what Ben experienced down in Old Mexico. So we're going to step outside. We'll be right back after this.
PSE Archery has reinvented the way you buy bows.
From now on, you can make the most educated decision possible
by basing your bow choice specifically on your shooting needs and goals.
All you need to do is ask yourself, what kind of shooter am I? What do I want to achieve?
PSE will help find the right category for you.
So, what kind of shooter are you?
Find out at psearchery.com.
Welcome back. Second segment of the show, down in Old Mexico.
In Old Mexico.
Man, I feel like old Pancho and Lefty here. I feel like we're riding across, down into some uncharted mountains down there.
Yeah.
So what we saw, was that a sunrise or sunset?
That was a sunrise. It looked like a sunset, but I promise you it was a sunrise. I was there.
So you're down there. He shoots a buck first day. What kind of weather were you having?
It was surprisingly mild.
Mild, okay.
Last year it was pretty warm, and I was wearing just super lightweight pants, lightweight shirt. This year I needed to throw on a jacket. At night I think one of the nights it got into like 48 degrees, somewhere around there. A little bit of a chill, but not bad, because I was up in the hunt before that was Kansas, and that was a couple weeks before that, and that was right before Thanksgiving. One of the mornings we got out there, it was 9 degrees for sitting in a blind in Kansas.
How much?
9 degrees.
9?
Niner. Yep, 9.
Niner. Colder.
Very cold. Very cold.
9.
Not a pleasant experience. But Mexico, you can't complain about Mexico in December.
No.
No, not at all. I cannot agree with that.
At least not when I've been down there, and I've not been down there often. So, but it was fairly mild and comfortable weather. You throw on a light jacket. There's a little windy. I don't remember that wind last year, but the weather itself was different this year. So,
okay.
Comfortable hunt though. Good weather. Deer were moving a lot of deer were moving, and it was a great experience. So,
far cry from being sitting here in December.
Yeah.
No kidding.
When it's 20-something degrees out.
So while you're down on the hunt, you weren't just running camera.
No.
You got to experience a little more than just filming.
A little bit more.
Or videoing, I should say.
Right,
it's
right.
not filming anymore.
Correct.
So.
Yeah. Well, before I get into that, I do want to give a shout out. Last year we were down there. There's a group called Combat Marine Outdoors.
Okay.
And it was started by a gentleman named Art Garcia, or they call him Master Guns. He was in the Marines, and he decided there was a need for something to get veterans, especially wounded veterans of PTSD or other things like that, war-related injuries, whether physical or not. They needed a place to go, something to give them good to look forward to. So last year, we were down there. There's a group of guys. I forget how many vets they had. A couple guys. They had lost limbs in battle and things like that. These are guys who have given
everything,
and they're willing to give absolutely
everything. More.
Everything.
Yeah.
And it was nice to be able to see they've got a great charity or 501c3, a nonprofit, I should say, where there's only like 3 or 5% overhead. So over 95% of the funds coming in are going to the vets. And it's run by a couple guys, Art, and also another guy, his name's Dustin. Just great guys. And they were down there same time we were last year. And after I filmed a hunt last year with the main guy I was hunting with, I also filmed a hunt with Art because, he's given of himself to these guys. And he doesn't get to do these hunts as much. But it was nice. All his guys had tagged out, so we went out with a camera with him, did a little interview in the blind in the middle of the day, and we watched a really nice buck we were calling Stickers, and then Art was able to get that buck. And that was a super cool experience to see a guy who is just like, I mean, his whole life he's just been selfless, you know, just always thinking about other people, and whether it be his country or his fellow soldiers. And it's not just for Marines. He was a Marine.
Okay.
Or excuse me, he is a Marine, always a Marine.
Yeah.
But,
He's sitting right here. Come get him.
Right. So this is an undisclosed location,
That's right.
Right.
The cabin.
You know, but this guy, he gives of himself so much, and to be able to be there with him, to see him take a beautiful buck, it was awesome.
That was cool.
They were down there again this year. And this year, the other guy, Dustin, was there, and so we were able to go on a hunt with him on the next day after Doc's hunt, and it was just a cool experience. You know, to see these guys give back and to be able to be a part of it, to be able to see what they do for these vets, these guys who've given the ultimate sacrifice. It's just a cool experience. You know, I mean, I wasn't, you know, like thinking initially of like, but I mean, like if you're looking at like some sort of veteran based, especially if you're in the outdoors, you know, look at those guys, because if you want to donate something, these guys are doing so much for,
and the money's going to them,
and that's not always the case. So, you know, there's a lot that are donating. I shouldn't say it, you know, they're donating, but not always as much goes to them. And to see these guys, you know, what they're doing for these vets really deserves our deepest gratitude. And they're not done. They're still fighting for these guys. So it's awesome to see. So that was the second day. We were out with Doc and this other guy.
Okay.
And so, you know, they just talked to each other and talked about it. And so that's, you know, if you want to see more about them, Combat Marine Outdoors. They don't just cater to Marines; it's to any of the armed services,
any branch of the service.
Correct. So, anyways, that happened on the second day. The morning of the third day, let me reverse a little bit. So, the night after Doc had gotten his buck, we're sitting around the dinner table eating. I don't even remember what it was. Delicious though. We're sitting around eating, and I had a really good long lens that I was using for some of the filming, but I also could put it on my still camera.
Okay.
And I said to Mike, the owner, I said, hey, Mike, you know, if you don't mind, if we get everything wrapped up within the next day or two, if you don't mind, I'd like to go out and sit in one of your blinds and just take some pictures. Take some pictures of the deer. And he said, well, what kind of buck do you want to kill? I was like, what?
You say what?
Right. I was like, well, I just, you know, take pictures. But ended up he said, well, I want to sit out with Doc and, you know, learn even more about management, because he's been working with Doc for some time.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I want to, you know, sit down and talk to him and see what deer he thinks we should keep, what deer we should cull, what deer we should wait on, that kind of thing. And, you know, basically he's
a learning process for him too.
Correct.
For his property.
So, you know, and management bucks got to be managed at some point. So that was something that as a part of that, he was going to allow me to do. And I was like, yeah, I mean, just, this never happens, you know?
It's like, yeah,
because, you know, I've been doing this a year and a half, and
right.
I haven't been able to hunt for myself
in
4 years.
Right. Yeah. Cause you're busy, you're working.
Right. And so here we are, and I was like, well, all right, you know, if that's if
you're going to make me.
Right.
Twist my arm,
right.
But, you know, I didn't, you know, I didn't want to push it, because it was, you know, extremely gracious of him to do that, and to allow me to be a part of it, and we're going to film it and all that stuff. So we went out on the third morning and sat in the blind, myself, Mike, and Doc. We sat in the blind, and in one blind, and Doc said, you know, that's a good one, that one's about this old. And I'm just learning from Doc. I'm just listening, you know. And he's like, well, that one's about 5 years old, that one's about 4 years old. So I'm like, well,
how do you know?
Tell the difference? What's the difference? Because, you know, I'd learned from a lot of guys, like, you know, you look for these certain features, look at the nose, look at the gut, look at the coloration on some of them, look at, you know, different features, and to be able to tell the age. But it always confused me with the 4 and 5 year olds. Like, okay, I can tell that one's a 3, and that one's at least older than a 3.
Right.
And then Doc would break it down, like, you know, well, look at the shoulders on this one. This is a 5 year old. It's all in the shoulders. You know, look at that. Okay, well, I'd never really realized that. So it was like, okay, so that one's a 5-year-old. No, that one's a 4-year-old. Look at the shoulders. So that one's a 5-year-old. No, that one's a 4-year-old. Look at the shoulders, or other, whatever. And so we're out there and we're looking at the different features of different deer. We're sitting in a blind and the deer are all around us. We come in there and, there's a deer that does a snortwheeze, and, which is pretty cool to see in person. And, we just watched him. This is him right there. Just look at the genetics of him alone. The brow tines on him and just the height and the mass and even the coloration. He's beautiful. But to watch him do that snortwheeze right in front of us it was cool because, you can see he's got his gut all sucked in because he's sucking in the air as he does. He's got the lip curled and, just all puffed up, angry because some other buck is getting a little too close to a doe that he wants. And
what amazes me about this picture is not the fact you caught it, but the sun's in the right spot. The deer is angled the right way. You can see his rib cage poking out where he's sucked that air in, and you can see that shadow on the backside. That's incredible. Yeah. It's just the timing of that photo is is awesome.
This is all early morning, and so this is all within a short amount of time too. And we see this buck out there, just a beautiful buck, and that's not even the biggest one we saw. And it's natural genetics. Like I said, it's natural genetics.
It's nothing they've done.
It's all part of the management, the quality of the management there. And they're learning more, and that's why he wanted Doc to sit out with me. He said, we want to make this the best we can, and so you see these deer around there, like the one they call Bullwinkle, and just he looks small-bodied, and he wasn't a huge bodied deer,
but the mass of the antlers.
But look at the antlers.
There's tons of mass there.
Beautiful deer, and that's another one that Doc shared on his Facebook page, and he has a couple more pictures of him on there.
And this is not photoshopped.
No, this is This is
so don't go there, people.
Right, this is real. This is real, and to see genetics in the deer, to see the quality of the deer around here, and then to hear Doc talk about how to get there, how to make it better, how to make it stronger, and that kind of thing. It's just such a learning experience. And then we're out there, and about 250 to 300 yards off, coming down the road, I see this 8-point. And, beautiful 8-point, almost perfectly symmetrical. This is a dream buck for anybody that I know. And just coming down the road, and and Mike's like, that looks like a good management buck.
And you're like,
say
okay.
What? Say that again. It was just an incredible opportunity. Doc was filming, and I was able to take this picture. It was about 15 minutes before. He was a little further out this time. When he came in, it was about 112 yards is what we ranged it to. And, one shot, 270 Winchester. Hornady bullets, which were,
we saw the video.
We saw the video.
Yeah, you saw the video. But if everybody else wants to see it, they got to watch the show.
Yep.
Right.
Which will be when?
Next year.
Next year.
North American Whitetail TV.
Okay. There you go. It'll be
keep an eye out for it.
Season.
So Doc was filming while I shot it, and all it took was one shot.
The aftermath. I don't want to give anything away,
right?
But the aftermath of what he did and what the deer did to me was just simply incredible,
right?
You got to watch it.
Yeah,
man.
I've still got the bullet because it ended up lodging in the shoulder opposite side of him, and just one shot took him down, and it was quick, it was clean,
absolutely,
just the way we like it.
Yep.
And Doc aged him. He was about 5.5 years old. And it was just, I've always loved seeing deer with those chocolate antlers and, like a quintessential whitetail hunt. Certainly not going to ruin whitetail hunting for me because now I know what to look for in a future deer,
Right.
But it was just an incredible opportunity that
doesn't happen often.
And
it's one of those things. It's
right.
Like you said, it's been since you started working there.
Right.
You haven't had the chance. And when this kind of just comes along.
Right.
If you're back in Michigan, you have the opportunity to hunt. What, after shooting that, what's going to be, how are you going to hunt Michigan, I guess is what I'm going to say. Are you looking for something of equal caliber or near that caliber?
I think,
especially after spending time with Doc.
Right. After spending time with Doc, You know, I mean, the $3, the last time I got a deer was 5 years ago. Like I said, I haven't hunted in 4 years until now, and the last time before that was 5 years ago. A lot of what we hunt around here is public land, so I'm not going to expect a 130-some-inch deer to walk out. Doc guessed this one. He didn't get a chance to actually measure it, so we didn't get the actual numbers, but once I get the actual rack from it, it'll be measured and all that stuff.
So now does that have to go through all the...
It's a process to get it through customs.
Yep, that's
so I don't have it yet. But when I do come back to Michigan to hunt, and I'd like to this next year, don't know if it'll happen. Let's hope and cross our fingers. Especially, northern Michigan. It seems that anytime I've been up there, I haven't seen a whole lot of real big deer, but they're out there.
Now, are you talking UP or are you talking northern lower?
Northern lower.
West side or east side?
West side. Northwest.
Okay, Northwest 12.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, exactly. So,
Gotcha.
I've hunted there before when there was an antler restriction, and I've hunted there before, before the antler restriction, and I just, at the time, I didn't know about it, right? I didn't know about management. I didn't know about aging. And I still know so little about it now, but I'm starting to get a better understanding and a better appreciation for it. Do I regret ever taking any of the deer I've taken that were all only a year and a half old? Absolutely not. At that time in my life, it was an incredible experience, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. The people I got to take those deer with that were in the blind with me or when I was by myself. The deer I got up in northern Michigan was a spot that my grandpa, who I was very close to, had told me. He said, go to this road, go down this little real narrow path. On the left hand is private, on the right hand is public. Go down that. Once you get to the end, there's a big drainage ditch. Go down that drainage ditch a few hundred yards. Sit up on this culvert. That's where I got one a few years ago. That's going to be a good spot, and that's where I got my deer up in northern Michigan. It was a small deer, very small at the time, but it was probably one of the ones I'm most proud of because
you followed Grandpa's advice.
Exactly, and
you did it by yourself. You're out by yourself,
right? And so to be able to have that memory, he just passed away back in February, but to have that memory of him, even though he wasn't there when it happened, but to be able to come home and show him the deer and say, this is right where you told me to go. It wasn't tied to a tree, but it may as well have been, but just experiences like that, I would never trade them for anything. I would approach it different now, though. Not just because I've gotten this deer in Mexico, but because of what I've learned from the people I've hunted with, about the reason for management, about the reason for letting them go and letting them grow older, letting them grow bigger. It's not to Doc, one thing that he can judge a deer pretty good on what the size is, especially on the hoof. But he doesn't care about the antler size. He cares about the age of the deer. He cares about letting them get older, and he realizes that once you get to a certain age, they're going to start to lose mass. They're going to get smaller because they're getting older. But he understands that, if you let a quality deer grow older, every year it gets older, it's mating with however many does, and that's passing the genetics on, and that's keeping those genetics, and that keeps that strong line going. And it's not, if I were to hunt northern Michigan now, I would absolutely let a young deer go.
So what do you think? 3.5, 4.5, 5.5 year old buck?
I'm having not hunted Michigan in a while. If you look at what Doc does, I couldn't tell you for sure what age I would go for. Let me just get that out there because I'm not going to be, snubby. Well, that one's only, 3.5 years old, but
You'll make that decision when you're out there.
Exactly. I'll make that decision when that time comes.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I do thankfully because of not only Doc, but all the other people, the bow hunters I've hunted with, the gun hunters, all these guys from North American Whitetail, Bow Hunter TV, all these guys I've hunted with, they've helped me understand, and being surrounded by other people who are experienced with hunting and understand what happens when you manage for quality deer. When I see all of that, I realize, okay, there's a reason to let them get bigger. And so for that reason, I'm not going to take a super small deer. I'd like to take a mature buck. That'd be ideal, Like I said, obviously, when you get out there and you see what's around you and all that, but, just to be able to see what can be done for deer, what we as responsible hunters can do for them if we allow certain measures to be put in place. It may seem kind of sour, like, why would you tell me I can only take one? Like, I can't take that four-point little buck. Why do I have to get so many points? It's about letting the deer get older. And there are, some of the deer I've gotten were only a year and a half old, but they would still fall within that antler restriction of 3 points on one side, inch or longer, or whatever it is now. I haven't hunted Michigan in a while.
Right.
But to be able to see the effect of letting deer grow older, I'd like to be okay with passing up younger deer.
Right.
For that reason, you know, and you know, I've seen a lot of guys, and I used to have the same mindset. Well, somebody else is just going to shoot it, so why don't I? Well, maybe, but my dad always and my dad always told me if that happens, you know, some kid might get the first deer.
Right.
I remember the feeling sitting in the blind with my dad when I got my first deer.
Yep.
And
I've never heard it put that way before, but that makes perfect sense.
You know, just because some kid, you know, we want to see more people out hunting responsibly. We want them to understand, but we don't want to jade them. You know, we don't want them to be like, well, you know, if we look down on people who take young deer, just like Doc, you talk to Doc. I told him, I'm like, well, you know, these were only a year and a half old. He said, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, he's all about letting the deer get older, but he, with full interest, wanted to hear my hunting stories.
Yep.
And despite how small those deer were, each one of my deer I've gotten in the past, the 3 deer, you add them together, I guarantee you, still smaller than that one I got in Mexico. But that's not what matters so much as, you know, I can respect and appreciate hunting because, you know, I grew up, my dad taking me hunting.
Took you out.
You know, and even my dad talks about sometimes when I was real young and we'd be in the blind and I'd just be talking nonstop. And he'd just be sitting there smiling. And I was too young to know, you know, like I was scaring off every single dear. And I always wondered when I was so young why we never saw a deer.
Yep,
yeah, it was my fault. Sorry, Dad. But, you know, it's just like you see, you know, if we can show people what's out there, you know, what can be had as far as deer hunting goes, and we can get people to understand that it's not about killing. It's not about just like, oh, it's just a kill. There's so much more to it than that. You know, that's only the culmination of, for some people, months, some people years.
Absolutely.
Especially when it comes to this deer management. You know, you talk about these people seeing quality deer each year, and they give these deer names. Because they're like, oh yeah, that's that deer. And some of the names are silly, you know, like the one was Bullwinkle, right? Because he's just huge. They have another one they call Mr. Broadway, and he was just super wide. And, you know, this one, I forget what they called this one. But he's just a beautiful wide buck. And just, you know, a lot of people's dream deer. But the thing about it is, like, they're watching these deer year after year. They're watching it, and in their management efforts, whether it be in Mexico or it be in Missouri, or it be in Illinois, or it be in Michigan, any of these places, you're seeing the effect, especially when they show you trail cam photos. Well, this is him last year. Oh, here's his sheds. I got his sheds. Just look at how big these are, but they're bigger now. And you see, you know, it's not about the kill. It's not necessarily about the size of the antlers on the deer.
It's about what you can do for the quality of the herd.
Right, because when you're managing that herd, you know, you're making sure that, you know, there's deer having a quality life.
Yep.
They're getting old. You know, there's things that have to be taken into effect. You know, are there coyotes running them down? Okay, what do we got to do to manage that? In some places, like down in Mexico, Texas, a lot of southern states, they're having issues with feral hogs. What do you got to do to manage that? You know, and they're just, it does create a better life for these animals. And, you know, I know a lot of people who have seen hunting, well, you're just killing animals. What joy do you get out of killing? There's a respect for these animals' lives, you know, that until you've experienced it in person, and I know you guys both know this, until you've experienced it in person, there's no way to describe it.
Yeah, that's right.
Especially when you take it to the next level, and not just taking a life and hunting on their level, but also taking it to that next level and getting into management.
Right.
Whether it's deer management or habitat management, you know, you're doing food plots or predator management, whatever you're doing to the landscape, it just, you want more.
Right.
At least I do.
Right.
I just want to get into it more and more and more.
Yeah.
That's right.
You know, and it gives me, you know, I always knew there was a reason to respect it. You know, you get that adrenaline rush after you make that shot. And before you make that shot, it builds up and builds up and builds up, and you start to shake. And, you know, whether you call it buck fever or whatever you want to call it, you know, it's, and then you take that shot and you've taken that life, and it's like, it's not just about that. It's not about the kill. It's about respecting the animal. And that's why I'm, you know, not everybody's going to have a chance to take a picture of their animal before, just because of this area where we were, you know, I was able to do that. I knew I had plenty of time just because you just watch them move slowly around you, feeding in the areas around you. And he comes out, and I'm able to take this picture where he just looks magnificent. You know, his head up, feet ready to take a step. He's looking at something else. Is he looking at a doe? Is he looking at another buck? There's another buck in front of him, but he's looking right over his back. You know,
he's in his element.
He's in his element. He's in his zone. It's nature doing what nature was intended to do. And to be able to take a part of that, to be a part of that, and then to be able to take this photo, and I can post that photo, and I can post this other photo of me after the fact, of the guys who were there to experience it with me. And I can put those pictures in a frame on the wall next to the antlers when I have them. And that allows me to tell the story. You know, I want to tell the story not to say I'm a great mighty killer, but to say, you know, this is my story. This is the story of this. And for everybody's story, whether it be sitting in a blind, sitting in a tree stand, sitting in a ground blind, spot and stalk, any of this, you know, because
it's your experience.
It's my experience, and it's not something to be taken for granted, you know. And I think, you know, if you want to get people to enjoy hunting,
that's the thing. To get people to enjoy the hunting,
right,
you got to get them out there, and then they got to experience it.
Right.
It's the experience that creates the memories. And it's the memories
like I've always said, it's the journey.
Yes.
You know, you pull that trigger or you release that arrow. That's a fraction of a second of this whole experience. Whether it's days, hours, days, months, years. You know, it takes a period of time, and you got that story to tell.
Yeah. And, you know, it's the absolute apex. And I'm by no means an expert hunter. I've learned more about hunting in the last year and a half than I have, you know, about hunting animals I never would have imagined hunting, just because of being a camera guy. And, you know, you're as much a part of that hunt as the hunter is.
Absolutely.
And so, you know, you're there. You've got to be just as quiet. You've got to be just as stealthy on the move. You've got to move in the same pattern. You got to move as one to be a part of that. And having a little bit of a hunting background to be able to understand why we do certain things. And even those who don't, you know, there's a reason we do these certain things, and to see it just all culminate into
that moment,
you know, the apex, the absolute peak. It's just an incredible experience, incredible opportunity, incredible experience. And there's just, you know, if we can show other people that and share that with other people and have them realize, you know, I'm not just a cold-blooded killer. You know,
right.
You know, hunting is in my blood. It was passed down through my family, and there's people in my family that take it way more serious than I do. You know, if I don't go hunting, you know, I didn't go hunting for 4 years, mostly because of work.
Right.
But just like I survived, you know, I know guys that absolutely have to go hunting, and that's fine. You know, if that's what gets you going, that's fine. You know, and so to be able to bring this all together and see it and just be a part of it, just to be a part of Doc getting his deer, and then the other guy from Combat Marine Outdoors, Dustin, getting his deer. That alone
is worth the price of admission.
It's absolutely worth it. Yeah. Because there's times where, you know, most times when I'm running the camera, I don't get the adrenaline rush. There's been a couple times this year. And, you know, to be a part of that and to get that same rush, and no, I'm not pulling a trigger, I'm not releasing a bow,
but you're
I'm
getting a shot. Yeah,
I'm getting a shot. I'm as much of a part of this hunt as they are. And so to be a part of that, incredible experience. Absolutely phenomenal.
That is awesome. I'll tell you what. Let's go ahead. Let's take our next break.
We got
come
some
back.
questions.
We got a couple questions for you, and then we'll kind of dive in. I know you got a couple more photos here that you want to show as well. So we're going to step outside, and we'll be right back after this.
PSE Archery has always dominated the speed category. Now, the most revolutionary cam system ever to hit the market has perfected the shooting experience. Introducing PSE's Evolve Cam System, featuring extremely high let-off capabilities and the smoothest draw cycle in history. No other cam system has ever delivered this level of total comfort and total control. Experience PSE. Experience performance.
Welcome back, third segment of the show. For those of you on the podcast who don't get to listen in on the commercial during the commercial breaks, you need to come back and watch the live stream.
That's right.
We talk about some cool stuff in the breaks as well.
Right?
So now we got a couple questions here before we get back into where you've been and what you've done. So we want to get these out of the way.
Tim Cius, our own sponsor of Call 'em Out on the
Limb Walker Game Calls.
There you go. Does Ben hunt turkeys?
Do I hunt turkey? I would like to hunt turkey. I haven't been able to in a long time. When I was real young, I went up to, what is the town? near Tawas. My grandpa had a place up there.
Okay.
And we'd go turkey hunting with him.
Okay.
Another one of those situations where I was probably talking too much. We didn't see anything.
Right.
I haven't hunted turkey since then. It's something that in recent months, and even in the last year or so, I've just thought, it'd be nice to get out there. I'm not opposed to getting out there and going turkey hunting. I just haven't yet.
Well, Tim is does nothing but think about turkey.
Okay.
Like I think about deer.
Right.
I mean, it's 24/7, 365.
Well, I would like to learn some more about turkey hunting. I just haven't had it.
What little I've gathered in the places I've hunted is it's definitely like deer, different in different areas you go to. It's
exactly
where he's at in West Virginia. Yeah, it's ravines, hills, hollers, and mountains.
Right.
So, what else you got, Dan?
For my brother, what is the most memorable thing you caught on camera? Let's make this not deer related. How's that?
Not deer related. Yeah, we can do that.
There you go.
I can't get into too much because in the last year, a lot of the shows I filmed haven't aired yet.
Right.
So watch Peterson's Hunting. Watch North American Whitetail. Let's see.
This is a teaser is what this is.
It really is. I mean, I would love to talk in full detail about all these things. And
he's contractually obligated.
Correct.
Sort of, but I just don't want to get in trouble. Let's see. My most favorite thing on camera, most memorable thing on camera. There was a lot this year. And so, like I said, you got to tune into the shows. But let's think about last year. I was in Mexico last year. One thing wasn't the most memorable, but last year with the one guy hunting, got in the blind, and 11 minutes later we saw the deer. 12 minutes later he was on the ground. It was done.
There you go.
Wham bam, thank you, ma'am. Done. And
right.
That's a wrap.
Right. Exactly. That was a whole new experience for me.
Yeah.
Boy.
Non-game animals. Have you caught anything extraordinary, like a non-game animal that you're not hunting and you just happen to be in the right place at the right time?
I think there's one thing I can mention. Just seeing, especially bears in their natural element. We are in their land in Alaska. I was up in northern Alaska last year.
You're in their refrigerator.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, you are.
It is a very, very... it's
tense
at times. And to see how they act in nature. A lot of people probably don't realize, unless you hunt bears, at least grizzlies or brown bears. I don't know if black bears do it, but I know with grizzlies and brown bears, basically, we'll get into the nature of it a bit. The sows, the females, will not go into heat to be able to reproduce while they've got cubs with them. And the boars, the males...
I know where this is going.
They don't like that.
Yeah, I know where this is going.
So they will go after cubs and try to kill the cubs.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's just the nature. That's just natural. They will try to kill the cubs. And I have seen last year in Alaska, I saw a sow go completely up on her hind legs, ready to charge. And even at times, a couple times, charging a boar that was getting too close to her cubs. Because he wanted to get a little bit of her, but he had to get those cubs out of the way first.
Right.
And she wasn't about to have it. And many times I've seen sows... get very feisty because, you're just a little too close for their comfort.
Right.
There you go.
I've seen it this year. I saw it last year. And to see nature in its most raw, brutal, almost untouched by human form. We were the only humans there at the time. There had been humans in the past, of course. But just to be able to be there in nature, you get dropped off by a float plane flies away. Say that 5 times fast.
Right.
Float plane flies away, and you're like, all right, I'm sitting here, and
nobody can get me.
Not going to see any other humans than the guy I'm hunting with and our guide for the next 8, 10, 12 days.
Right.
Awesome. What's out here? Well, we got moose. We got bear.
Wolves.
We've seen wolf tracks.
Cougars?
Didn't see any cougar tracks. Saw some fox. I got some pictures of fox last year.
Okay.
The caribou last year, they were starting to move. So we'd see stuff like that, and just, this is, they call it the last frontier for a reason. It's just boom, nothing.
Desolate.
And there's no way to describe it. And the weather, you've got the weather where like days of rain. You look here and this just...
You experienced that pretty bad last year. That's kind of how you started getting a little trouble with
right,
hypothermic?
Exactly. Yeah, right, exactly. And where my body was all messed up because it was cold.
Yeah.
It was rainy. I wasn't drinking enough water. Listen to episode 477.
That's right. Yeah.
You know, but honestly, like that's what got me into trouble. Well, this year I wasn't going to let that happen, so I was drinking water nonstop. But just look at this. It's cold, it's foggy, it's wet constantly. When the sun does come out, bugs everywhere. But occasionally the sun would come out and you would deal with the bugs, but you'd get views like this, you know. And there were salmon swimming through that river, back and forth. There was a beaver dam just down the way a little bit, and the salmon were jumping over and down that dam, and the bears would fish in the river. And
that looks relatively flat.
It looks flat, but it's not. Let me tell you what, it is not. The tundra, it looks flat initially, but then once you get up in there, you realize, okay, this is...
Even that photo there, it doesn't look mountainous.
Right.
But you're in altitude.
A little bit of altitude. We were pretty... So this year we were about 10 miles from the ocean.
Okay.
So we weren't super high up.
Okay.
Last year we were up a little higher, and we were pretty close to the Brooks Ranges last year.
Okay.
Way north. I mean, last year we were about 600 miles north of where we were this year. But, you know, just the weather coming in, we got a lot of basically lake effect, only ocean effect, sea effect, or whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
Coming out of there, that was a lot of the stuff we got. But I tell you what, when the weather was nice, and, you know, you see that sunset, and then the sun goes down, you got a clear sky, and, you know, you can take a long exposure picture like this, set up the camera on a tripod, hit go, run down and stand there with a flashlight in a puddle about 1.5 feet of water. Thankfully, I was wearing my waders. I didn't realize it at first. But, you know, to be able to experience this, see it in person and be there, it's nature at its rawest. You know, just the... You know, they call it a dog-eat-dog world, if you will, or a bear-eat-cub world, or whatever.
Right. Unforgiving.
Very unforgiving. And, but it's just, there's nothing like it. And so, memorable, I mean, Alaska. It's got to be. You know, to see these bears acting in nature, to see the way the sows tend the cubs and defend the cubs, and when it's time for the cubs to move on, the sows kick them out. Just to see that in person, phenomenal. Absolutely incredible. And... I never would have been able to do it had I not had a job like this, you know. So
this isn't something you can do on a weekend,
right? You know, I mean, these are hunts
not
that people plan.
exposure.
Right,
Yep.
People plan for years
to do these,
to do a hunt like this.
Absolutely.
That's
that's cool.
Be.
That's life experiences creating memories.
Yeah, memorable in good and bad ways, but definitely memorable.
And real quick, the last question. I don't know if we can do it or not, but do we have a picture of his deer and the other buck? Are those two different age deers in that picture?
If we're looking at any of these deer that we've shown,
you're talking
the one like this one, the deer in the front and the deer in the rear. What age difference are we looking at? Do we know?
Oh boy, put me on the spot.
Your brother is asking, I saw, right?
I don't know if we have a picture enough to show.
This one's going to be the best example of that.
Okay.
Or even actually, if you go to the one of mine, this one, that one behind him.
Mm-hmm.
See, thinking on the spot, I can't remember exactly how old that one behind him was. That one behind him was a couple years younger. But if you go to this other one, right there. Okay, so there's my deer, 5.5 years old is what Doc ended up aging him at.
Mm-hmm.
That one in front of him, they figure... I think they were figuring he was about 3.5 or so.
Really?
3.5.
Okay.
Doc said, that one in front, he's got excellent genetics. You can't really see it as well there, but he's got really good quality to his antlers. But, you look at his nose, he's got a bit of a, from his eye down, kind of cuts down a little bit in a downward angle.
Mm-hmm.
In that front deer, whereas a mature deer, typically it's going to be very straight line from the brow down to the nose. Oftentimes, you can see a little bit of the youth there. The shoulders aren't built up as much. The gut is pretty tight. It's a younger deer.
Where your 5.5 has got a little bit bigger. You can see body wise right in this picture.
Exactly. You can see his gut hanging down a bit. You see a bit built up into the shoulders. Just the weight, how muscular he is, just standing. Semi ready to move. It's
the neck flows right into the shoulders.
Exactly.
Yeah. He's got a shorter neck.
Yeah. And he had a pretty, shorter. It looks shorter just because it's beefed up.
Sure. And the other one, he's got longer legs.
Right.
I mean, he looks like his legs are a little bit longer than his body. His body.
And a lot of things, if you look at the hocks of the one in the front, you can't see it on the one in the back because they're covered by the one in the front. But you see that the staining on the hocks, that little brown
on the tarsus.
dot. Exactly. You know, that was one of the things Doc kept saying, you know, look at that, look at that, look at that, to tell oftentimes between like a 2.5 and a 3-year-old, like how much staining there was just from part of their mating rituals and, you know, the different glands there. So, you know, to see the different age in them, that's the best picture I have that I showed you guys.
Right.
I've taken hundreds of pictures. Just in that morning, I took over 550 pictures. Multiples of each deer, but 550 pictures that I'm still working on editing.
Right.
So
imagine if we were back in the day of roll of film.
Run down to the drugstore and develop, or go to the dark room. And develop
I couldn't do it.
Pictures at a 36 roll exposure.
That's a lot. That's a lot of rolls.
Right.
It's a lot of money. I couldn't do it if I had to do it that way.
I tell you what, let's step outside, take our last break. Let's say the time we got left for the last segment of the show. So we're going to step outside once again, and we'll be right back after this.
Acceleration is part of PSE's DNA. PSE pioneered the speed movement. Now they've developed the vapor category to help you find the most powerful bows on the market to fit you.
High speed equates to intense power and building the momentum you need to be successful. Are you a vapor shooter? Find out at psearchery.com.
Welcome back to the last segment of the show, Alaska, Old Mexico, aging deer.
All the way from Alaska to Mexico and everywhere in between.
Talked about hunting a little bit here in Michigan.
A little bit of Kansas.
If from what you've learned so far, I'm gonna throw this question. I just kind of thought of it. Sitting with all these different people, plus Dr. Kroll, hunting in general, what's the best piece of advice you could give to a new hunter or maybe even a seasoned hunter out there that's not into deer management? I mean, what's the one thing you could offer that you've seen and learned out in the field, running with a camera with these guys?
Not being an expert, but hanging out with a lot of guys who are. It's, you know, it's all about letting them get older, letting them grow older, letting them get bigger. You know, I mean,
is that like species across the board, you think?
I don't know if I'm qualified to answer this question, but the fact of the matter is, you know, each year a deer gets older, it's another year that it can be spreading its genes to other deer.
Right.
And it can be creating more deer down the road that can carry a lot of that same genetic, you know, the genetic footprint or whatever you want to call it. So that these deer deer, bears, moose,
whatever.
Right. You know, and the thing is, that's why in many places, you know, I think that's why they put, you know, a size restriction, because often, not always, but often size is
indicative of
age. And
even with fish, you know, they get bigger as they get older.
A minimum limit, right?
Yeah, they got slot limits and things like that, and different things that they want to use to manage that species.
You know, and when you know, we talk about how, you know, I just saw a sign the other day that plays right into this. It said, "Beautiful views brought to you by hunting." Okay, what does that mean? Well, conservation, you know, we can say plenty of times hunters are the greatest conservationists. We're pouring millions of dollars every year.
Billions
of dollars with a B into hunting licenses, or, you
products.
know, products.
Which we got Pittman and Robertson funds that come back to each state, you know, and get put back into management that way.
Right. You know, this money is being put into so much, and, you know, we as responsible hunters, you know, we got to realize that if we want to harvest quality animals, we've got to allow them to get to that point.
That's right.
We can't kill them before that, you know?
Well, it's the conservation part, like you said, that makes sure that we don't do that and we wipe them out again, whatever species it is.
Right.
We look at ways of whether we're reintroducing or we're taking our time with them and just looking at them scientifically, saying, hey, guys, we're starting to really wipe this out. We need to pull back on it, you know, cut the limit or whatever it might be. Like up in Saginaw, up in the Bay Area, they're having just the abundance of walleye. They lowered the size limit a little bit so they could pull more out because they were starting to get to that too many.
And that's not good either.
Right.
You know, we see that up in our area where we deer hunt. You know, we get over browsing. Well, what happens with that? Then your habitat gets destroyed.
Yeah.
And that has so many other ramifications that I've learned from Dr. Kroll. You know, it leads to so many different things. So,
you know, and seeing, you know, the heaviest I've seen the management on is for deer. And, you know, and the skittish, elusive whitetail deer. that are not as skittish or elusive in Mexico, but they're still whitetail deer at their core. To see the management, because just a few years ago, Mike was talking when he first got that place, it was awful. There were very few deer. A lot of them were real young, but it had been overhunted, and the land was, you saw the one picture where it was, that sunrise, and you see that nice scrubby brush, but, Mike's implemented different steps to basically create better habitat for these deer.
Does he have food plots, watering holes per se? Has he gone in and worked with the land to that aspect?
He's working with the land in a lot of ways. And I don't think he's really doing the food plots much. He does have some cattle, and we see deer in the same areas sometimes.
Yep. Okay, yeah. All right.
But like to look at just the natural land as it was untouched for who knows how many years, and needing to maintain that land because he just didn't have a good crop. But this is just a few short years later, and
this is Mike here with you in this
correct.
photo?
That's Mike in the back there.
Okay.
What he's done to this land is he turned it from something where it's just another whitetail and it's small and there's the land's not that great and all that, to these quality deer that some of the bucks they consider management bucks are bucks of a lifetime. And to be able to see that, natural genetics that have been allowed to flourish, Bullwinkle being a prime example of that,
And this has all happened in just a few short years, right?
Just a few years. I don't know the exact number, but you look at this, something like this is like, these animals have got plenty of food. Habitat's been managed well. They've got, they've been given the opportunity to grow. Certain bucks are specifically not harvested because they've got great genetics to pass it on.
Right.
And until the time comes to harvest those deer when, they've lived to a certain point, then at that point, if it's their decision to harvest, then so be it.
Yep.
But to allow genetics to pass on generation after generation, to see so many deer, we could look at certain deer and say, okay, that deer is the son of this other deer that we knew about, and that other deer, he was magnificent, and this one is showing the same patterns, the same types of the
traits.
The traits, exactly. The traits in antler shape or coloration or size, shape, anything. It's showing a lot of the same traits and characteristics, and you see, okay, that is what management does for it. And in however many years it takes, if we, realize that hunting is not just about us as the hunter. It's a two-way road.
Right.
And we're going to get what we give. Mm-hmm. So if we as hunters are giving to the habitat, we're giving to the deer, we're giving to nature with time. Maybe it takes a little bit longer than we want, but if we can just convince ourselves to be patient and to realize that it's for the greater good of animal and us, we can make a difference.
What you just said, I've never heard it quite put that way. You're going to get back what you give. Yeah. If you don't give anything,
you always take.
Yeah,
you're going to run into a problem.
Yeah, eventually you're not going to get.
Well, look what we've run into with just what we going in and doing lumbering, doing forestry projects, right? What you get in and when you go in there, no, it's good to do that. Mm-hmm.
You cut that old growth out.
Yep.
It's going to flourish and regrow.
Which is good to hear that I heard was that's what the DNR and everybody likes to hear, because that also helps if a forest fire starts. Mm-hmm. It's a stopping point. Yep. It's like, it's not a matchbox.
I talked to a guy that's now managing up in the northeastern, I think he's up in New Hampshire, Vermont, somewhere up there. And he used to manage Huron National Forest. Mm-hmm. He said that there's more dead fuel load on the ground in the state of Michigan, in northern Michigan. He said if a fire ever starts on Lake Michigan, it won't stop until it gets to Lake Huron. He said there is so much dead fuel standing in the forest right now. It's just mismanaged, and it's not so much the public grounds, it's the private grounds.
It's
and that's kind of where we've started at our place. And we've started doing a lot of timbering and trying to get that dead stuff down, get it out of there, and get that mature stuff gone so we can get some habitat growing.
Right, and that was something my dad said in the past, especially when he and I started going up there. It wasn't until 2011 the first time I went up there to hunt up in northern Michigan, and that for me was a cool experience. But that was like everywhere you look, there's so much, and there's this one spot that he used to hunt a lot when he was younger, and he likes to hunt it still, and that's it's awesome to be able to hunt those same spots. But he talks about how much thicker the foliage is,
right?
And he can show me the stump. It's all rotted out now, but the stump where my grandpa was when he took an 8-point buck that's now hanging in Dad's family room at home.
That's cool.
He was sitting behind that stump awesome. And that stump is just a few hundred yards away from where I got mine.
Yeah.
The stump I was sit behind.
Right.
But, you know, he's talked about it before. You know, you don't see the quality of deer. Partly it's, you know, whether it's being overhunted or whether, like you said, the habitat management. And last time I was up there 4 years ago, they were doing a lot of management as far as the loggers were up there just chopping trees, and you could see just these clear-cut areas. And, you know, they take out the big logs, but they leave all the other stuff. But then you'd see all this young growth coming up.
Right.
And, you know, that's just deer fuel right there, you know.
Yep.
So to be able to see, you know, Dad would talk about when he was a lot younger, the deer were a lot more plentiful. They were bigger. They had plenty of food. Now they got a lot of acorns. But what else do they have up there?
Right.
You know, there's some stuff, but not, you know, it's not like sitting on cornfields or bean fields around here.
Right.
And
pine trees are not good food.
Right. And so now that they're starting to clear cut some of that stuff, you know, it all comes down to the management. And if we can show people that, especially people who aren't hunters, to realize, you know, this is, you know, you want to see these beautiful scenic views, you want them to last, like you said, what a forest fire would do. That's not, you know, if that were to happen, hopefully not, but if it were, I mean, how devastating would that be for those beautiful views?
Absolutely.
You know, and we as conservationists, as hunters, you know, as stewards of the land, you know, if we can be a part of that, if we can just be stewards of the land, if we can, you know, make it so that, look, you know, just because you can't kill a deer this year because it's tiny, it's okay, you know.
Right.
If you let it go,
it's
going to get bigger.
Right.
It's nature.
You know, and in the private sector, Lincoln Roan comments that he's just entering his property into the forestry program, and that's a great incentive to get into. You draw up a management plan, what you're going to do with that property and business for the next 10 years, and they help you out. They'll give you some tax breaks.
Yeah,
you know?
that's how we started.
That's what I got into last year.
I talked to Danny about it. He got involved, and another one of our guys here that watches the show, he's doing the same thing. And the state is trying to help people become land managers.
Right.
You know, and they're throwing it out there that says, hey, if you want, you know, we'll gladly give you the tax incentive to do this.
Right.
Like I said, talking to my forester, they're like, no problem at all, because they want it, because, like I said, the forest fire thing, you know, it's a perfect stop for them. And then just to know that another person's taking care of their land that they don't have to worry about.
Right.
Yep. You know, they'll take care of their lands north of us. You know, they've been going in and they've been cutting, leaving it alone, you know, kind of checkerboard cutting. So, you know, they're working on it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't happen overnight. And a lot, like you said, up in your area in the northern lower, it's all private.
Yeah. Like you said right there, nothing of it's going to happen overnight. It takes time, but as with most things, time is worth it. You know,
absolutely.
To see, you know, that's why I would, if I were northern Michigan hunting, it may be the only buck I see, but if it's a baby, I'm not, you know, I'm going to let it go, because, you know, as much as you get there's a deer. Oh, you know, should I shoot it? Should I not? Is it because I'm spoiled? No. Am I spoiled on some of the stuff I get to do because of the job? Yes.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
Yeah.
But I don't want to lose that respect for the land, for the animals, because when you start to somewhat understand, and you listen to somebody like Doc who understands a lot more, but even he says, you learn something. He said, I learn every day. Try to find something new to learn every day, and he does.
Puts it all in perspective.
Puts it in perspective that even somebody who's got almost 50 years experience doesn't know it all. So me, who is 25 and has been hunting since I was just a few years old, or a few years ago, and a few years old when I was first hunting with Dad, I don't know anything. You know,
think about all the things you're going to get to learn, though.
Right. And
that's the
so
cool part.
To be able to see that, and to be able to see, you know, these people, they say it, and it's like, oh yeah, you say it, but you don't know what it's like to hunt where I hunt. It's hard to hunt where I hunt. There's almost nothing. There's almost nothing, because it all got shot when I was younger.
Right.
So, right. And another misnomer is when you hear them say, well, we just don't have the genetics in the state.
Baloney.
I know there. I know personally, and
it doesn't get to express itself.
If it's managed correctly, we see where it can go.
Right. Absolutely.
We see it on the wall up there.
You know, you talk about fantastic views in the places you've been. You know, it reminds me of the quote I love to use. It's from Donnie Vincent. He says, he says, we have to put ourselves in fantastic places to experience fantastic things.
Yeah.
And that goes, if you want a fantastic hunt, you've got to put yourself in those places. And maybe your place isn't that way, but it can become that if you manage it properly.
Yeah. And Lincoln Roan even has a saying, let them go and let them grow.
Absolutely. I wonder where you got that from. So, well, I'll tell you what, we're bumping up here at the end of the show for the podcast. We're going to wrap up the podcast portion of it. Ben, I just appreciate you taking time out of your holiday to stop by. I know you don't get home much, and you've spent, we're going on an hour and a half right now, so we really appreciate you being here.
Absolutely.
I appreciate coming on.
Have to stay in touch. If people want to find out, number one, where they can see your shows that are airing, where do they look?
Outdoor Channel, Sportsman's Channel.
Okay.
North American Whitetail TV.
Okay.
The Mexico trip from last year aired, I want to say it was a couple months ago.
Okay.
Or a month ago. I've lost track of time the last few months. Been a lot of places. But, you know, this time leading up to hunting season next year, North American Whitetail, whatever season they're on. It's horrible that I don't know offhand anyways.
But no, they put them out so far.
Exactly.
And the ones that have already been out leading up to the next year's new shows,
they'll rerun them.
They'll rerun them.
Let me put it this way. I shot the footage for the Mexico trip. I backed it up to 2 hard drives so I would have backup. Haven't had a chance to send it down to the editors yet. So it's not going to happen anytime soon as far as seeing the show on TV. But, as soon as I get it down to them, they'll work on it in due time. But like I said, Outdoor Channel, Peterson's Hunting, that's one I worked on quite a bit. Usually it's about a year later from the show. So the trip from last year already aired. And then I filmed a whole lot of Peterson's this year. Filmed 4 different Peterson's hunts this year.
Okay.
Out west. And all of that stuff, Peterson's Hunting TV, Peterson's Hunting magazines, that's all us, North American Whitetail Magazine, Bowhunter TV, Bowhunter Magazine, plus a host of other magazines. You know, that's all the guys I work with on the regular. So that's where they can go. Dr. Deer, he's got Facebook.
You've got Facebook?
I do have Facebook. I hardly ever post on it, but you can go follow me. It's Ben Lalonde, traveling videographer. Instagram is BRL_travels. Whole lot easier to remember that. I cross post between the two when I do post. And, there's some places I go, some things I do, some things I'm a part of that I can't necessarily post on right then, right there.
Right.
Hence the reason I can't go into detail about a lot of the stuff, a lot of the hunts I've been on, or even show you the footage from mine on the web here, because it's all, stuff that can be part of the show potentially. Right. So, we want to keep that fresh for the viewers.
Well, maybe we get you back next year and you can show us a little of that. We can talk about a few of those things after we've seen them on TV.
There you go. That'd be great.
That's good.
That's the biggest thing I can say is, I do have my page, but I hardly ever post. So, but the thing is, all of these shows, these TV shows, they all have Facebook pages, Instagram pages.
Absolutely. Yep.
Outdoor Channel has an Instagram and Facebook page. Oftentimes they're posting teasers, and I've seen a lot of the teasers for shows I've worked on, whether it be Guns and Ammo TV or Peterson's Hunting or North American Whitetail and some of the other ones. I've seen in the last few weeks a lot of teasers for shows I've worked on. So you follow those pages.
You'll see it.
You're going to see it's at least coming up.
Yep.
And then, boom, you can, hopefully, if you got it, you can tune in and check them out.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what, everybody on the podcast, that'll do it for us. If you want to see the photos that we've been talking about on the show here on the live stream, go over and check it out. Danny posts on Wednesdays. Make sure, if you would, share the shows for us if you like them. And also give us a review over on iTunes on the podcast if you would.
And don't forget to wish everybody a Happy New Year.
That's right. And we'll sign off with that. So we'll see everybody next year.
And don't forget you can catch us in syndication at 2 p.m. Eastern Time on goodtalkradio.com. This episode was brought to you by PSE Archery,
Carbon Express,
Fourth Arrow Camera Arms,
Windscent Hunting Scents,
Killer Food Plots, Seeds, Supplements, and Attractants,
Cabela's,
Spot Shooters,
Limb Walker Game Calls,
Twisted Minds Bowstrings,
Hunter's Blend Coffee,
Antler Action,
and Family Traditions Tree Stands.
Thanks for listening, and join us again here next week. Until then, remember, as we always like to say, if you're out on the water or in the woods, shoot straight and be safe. Until next week on the Up North Journal.